Hey guys, so I know that for ages I've been promising to actually build a still to go on top of this awesome boiler that I've got now. And guess what? This week I'm actually going to do it. So what I want to do is build this piece here. And the reason I want to do this is that I've never brazed before. I've only done a little bit of soldering, so why not try something new? And I picked this piece because I figured that being where it is probably the least critical part to get absolutely perfect. And it's got a few little tricky sort of compound parts that all need to go together at the same time. So I figured it was a good test to start brazing on. Hey everyone, welcome to Still It. If you're new here, this is the channel all about chasing the craft of home distillation and making it a legitimate hobby. If that sounds like something you're into, have a look around, think about subscribing because I put out a new video every week. Alright guys, so I know that you know that I know that I've never brazed before, so this is not going to be a tutorial video, which kind of begs the question, why the hell would you watch it? That's totally fair enough, and to be honest, I think there's a few different reasons. First up, maybe you're an absolute guru at brazing and you could probably help me out. The thing is that if I'm going to have some troubles with things, there's probably going to be other people that have the same trouble, so you're going to end up helping them out as well. Second, maybe you're new to brazing as well. Maybe you've never tried it or you're just getting started. Maybe you're trying to decide whether to give it a go or not. Maybe watching this video can help you decide whether or not it's something you want to get into. And you can help learn from my mistakes as well. We can get there together. On the other hand, maybe you just think it's a stupid idea and there's no point making this video. If that's what you think, don't watch it. Alright guys, so enough talk, let's head over to the workbench and get started.
So the first thing I needed to do was cut the segment of 2-inch copper, and as you can see I didn't have a square edge to work with. I tried trying to work something out with a set square or a T-square. Nothing was working, so I decided that the easiest way was probably just to wrap a piece of paper around it and line the edges up top and bottom, and the variance from that was probably going to be less than the variance of my cut. So I marked the cut line with a vivid and measured just by eye the amount of space I wanted between the edge of the ferrule and the end of the reducer, and marked that side as well. I just wanted to mark the side that was straight, as the other side was just hand-drawn. I wanted to try cutting the copper with the little engraving wand that came with my pseudo Dremel, but I just didn't feel good about it, so I switched back to just using the Dremel straight. Took my time, used these cheap little cut-off reinforced discs that I got on AliExpress, and in the end I ended up with a relatively clean cut. Right here I wasn't worried about a finished edge, I was just filing it down because I've cut myself on the jagged edges of cut copper before, and I didn't want that sharp stuff hanging around while I was working it. Obviously I also needed some flat sheet copper, and I figured I would just hammer that out of a section of the 2-inch. I am also going to need some more flat inch later on when I make the shotgun condenser. I thought I may as well get enough of it now, and this piece looked pretty good as it was big enough, but it also had this little ding in it, and I probably wasn't going to use it for anything else. Somewhere along the way, someone suggested that an easy way to clean these copper tubes would be to heat the crap out of them and then give them a good scrub afterwards, so I wanted to try that. I also knew that I wanted to probably anneal, especially the bit that I wanted to hammer flat, just to make it a little bit easier to work with, so I figured this was probably the best time to do that. Turns out it was really good advice. This is by far the easiest way I've found to clean copper so far, so I'm really happy I took that advice. And it also kind of surprised me how easy it was to cut the copper with the tin snips after annealing it. The last time I used tin snips on copper, I did not anneal it first, and it was no way near as easy to cut as this. Once I had it cut and just pulled open with my hands, I used a couple of pieces of wood in my very crappy little vise to straighten it most of the way. What I couldn't get done with the vise, I just used a hammer. Honestly, it may have been easier to use the hammer from the beginning. I don't really know. The vise actually worked pretty well for me though. I then fixed the 4 corners of the copper plate down to a piece of board just to make things a little bit easier to work with. I probably didn't need to do it for this, but I figured I may as well get it done now, because when I'm trying to drill 5 holes into one of these circles for the condenser, I'm definitely going to need this. I just marked the cut and drill lines out by hand because I knew these didn't need to be super accurate, and I was going to make sure everything was bigger than it needed to be, and I can file it down later. I don't have a drill press or anything fancy like that. I've just got a battery operated drill. So I just worked my way up through to the biggest drill bit I had, and then onto one of the Christmas tree drill bits to get to the right size. Once again, I used the tin snips to cut out the outside of the circle. I wasn't too worried about this cut because I knew I was going to be filing it down at the end. So now I needed a piece of 2" to act as the small end of the reducer, back to the Dremel to cut it off. I then annealed the tip because I knew I wanted to expand it to give a snugger fit for brazing. At this point I actually unintentionally bent the whole thing, but that actually kind of worked out to my favor in the end, so I'll show you that later. After cleaning the bejesus out of everything with stainless wool, I fluxed the inside of the ferrule to mate with the inside of the copper pipe and tapped it all together with a hammer. It's a nice snug fit, so it did need a little bit of persuasion. I decided to braze the copper to the stainless first, as I suspected that this was going to take the most heat. Honestly, this is kind of the point where I think things start getting interesting. Up until here, I mean, I'm sure I made 1,000 silly little mistakes, but I don't think it was a big deal. From here on in, I'm totally in over my head. I've never done this before. I've never even seen it done before. So this is where things really start getting interesting. Honestly, I think being able to watch a video of myself doing this is a pretty cool learning tool. Like, for example, now I don't know why I'm heading so far up. Why aren't I aiming the gas down at the stainless? Surely that's where the most heat needs to be, right? So here I go, first time ever with a braze rod. And looking back on it now, I don't know what I was thinking, but for some reason, I really did not want to point the flame at the braze itself, which now I guess should have been obvious to me, but I tried to do this only by heating the copper. For some reason, I also thought that it was a bad idea to heat the braze after it had melted. I don't know why, but you can see I pull away as soon as it's melted and move on to the next spot, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me now. But hey, I mean, it was my first time and it's for learning, right? So there you have it, in all its ugly, ugly glory, my first braze. At this point, I think I probably should have tried to troubleshoot this a little bit now, but instead I moved on to the rest. I knew it was going to be pretty important to have a very snug fit around here, so I just worked it nice and gently with a hammer for a little while, just to make sure that there was no big gaps and that things were fitting snug. The plan at this stage was to quickly braze this joint, drop the 2" on top, heat that up and braze it as well. Honestly, I don't know how I could have better gone about that. This is another good example of how watching the video is a better learning tool than actually doing it. I didn't realize at the time that this wasn't sitting flush. From the angle I was looking at it, it looked totally flush. So that's pretty interesting to me, and turns out there was no real point flaring the end of that copper after all. I feel like at this point maybe I started to kind of get the concept a little bit, and I started trying to use the heat to pull the braze around and let the heat do the work a little bit more than just trying to paint it on. But honestly, I was still bumbling around in the dark right now. I'm really embarrassed to say this, but at this point in time, my CF card ran full, and I didn't get this next braze on video. So I'm really sorry for that, guys, but take my word from it. It was just more of the same old crap. You didn't miss much. Even with a super crude water test, you could tell that this thing was leaking. So I decided to just have another crack at it. My plan at this stage was basically to heat it up until the point where I just started to see the original braze melting through like this. Add a little bit more of the rod to it and try and use the heat a little bit more to move it around. At this stage, I think I was starting to kind of get that concept, and I guess I sort of remembered people telling me that that's what you should do. But I guess looking at it now, I'm still kind of relying on the rod itself to move it around. Whether or not that's correct, I've got no idea. At this stage, I decided it was time to employ the super high-tech water test. After letting it sit for quite a while, it was obvious that this joint wasn't leaking anymore, at least at this pressure. It was, however, painfully obvious that this was leaking. So I needed to do something about that. But dude, how cool is the meniscus on top of that from this angle? That's really cool. I figured I needed to give that stainless a whole lot of heat, and I was a little bit worried that the top joints were going to fall apart, so I put the water-soaked paper towels up top. How much good that did, I don't know. But my plan was basically to work my way around, getting the stainless really hot, remelting the braze, and just trying to sort of spread it out and get it to bond a little bit better. Obviously it's still pretty crappy, but I think it's a whole lot better now. After about 3 hours full of water, there's still no signs of any leaking. So really the only thing left to do was to give it a bit of a cleanup.
Alright, so, well, that was an experience. To be honest, it kind of went the way I expected it to go. Not technically and not the actual outcome of what I made, but more the process of learning. Obviously, I still have no idea what I'm doing, guys, but I feel like it's a skill that I can, with the help of people online, teach myself and get to a proficient point. It's not pretty. In fact, it's ugly as balls, to be honest, but it seems to be functional, and I'm really happy with that. So I'm on the board, I'm getting there, the still's coming, guys. With any new skill like this, I find it really important to ask for advice, of course, but also to try and kind of self-assess and critique yourself. Honestly, videoing this process has been really interesting, so I'm really looking forward to sitting down and actually editing this. I think it's going to be really helpful. These are the points that I've come up so far for self-critique. First, I think that I was not using enough heat, and I wasn't letting the heat draw the braze where it needed to go. I was trying to kind of paint it on, almost like a paintbrush with the braze rod itself. I also think that I was putting way too much braze on in certain places. Someone suggested that I should use twink to help keep things nice and clean. They told me that before I started on this. I just didn't have it on hand and I couldn't get it easily. But looking at it now, I can totally understand why you would want to use that. I guess I underestimated a little bit the amount of heat that I'd need, especially for the stainless. Perhaps preheating, whacking, especially the stainless, when I was doing the stainless joint, whacking that in an oven for a little while beforehand may have helped as well. And obviously, it is one of those things that there is a knack to it. It does involve a whole lot of skill. I can tell that right off the bat to do it really well. In any case, those are the things that I kind of think I was doing wrong and I can improve on. But if you really know your stuff and you can give me some pointers, so you can give me some tips, I would love to hear them. If, however, you're new to this and you're thinking of giving it a crack, or you've had a go and it didn't go so well, don't listen to me. Check the comments out down below, because those are going to be where you learn something. I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep building the still, and I'll get another video out for you to see more next week. So thanks a bunch for watching, guys. This was really fun for me. It was a cool learning experience. If you liked the video, like it. If you really liked it, have a think about subscribing, and I'll see you next time. See ya!